Hey, we're talking about 5 players that I think you should try and buy low on before the NFL draft. As always, guys, if you like Dynasty content, make sure to just hit the like on this video and, of course, subscribe to the channel. 70-80% of you that watch my videos are not subscribed. Hit the subscribe button, help us get to 1,300 subscribers. Buy lows. Buy low is really, really hard to do because there's so much content out there these days. Every player in the NFL seemingly has a buy low video made about them. Dynasty managers as a whole are just a little bit more savvy and smart and suspicious when you send them a trade for some of these players. But the way I like to buy low is it never really works when, like, okay, this player is valued as like a early 3rd round pick. I'm going to send that for this player. It never seems to work out that way. So how I like to buy low is to get these players in as like a throw in. Right, your other pieces involved, other assets involved, and this player gets thrown into the deal to say, hey, throw this guy in and we'll make this deal. So you're giving that manager someone they want, you're getting something that you want, and then maybe you get one of these players as like a throw-in. It's like, look at the shiny light over here, don't pay attention to what's happening over here, right? So that's kind of how I like to buy low on players. You got to make it a combination type of trade. So we're recording this on Friday, April 18th. You're going to be seeing this early next week of draft week. So keep that in mind. Buy low on these players potentially before the NFL draft. And Jaylen Warren is the first one. Keep trade cuts RB32. Currently, the Steelers RB1, right? And I think the reason why he's not higher, because if we all believed he was going to be the Steelers RB1, he would be much higher. We all assume that the Steelers are gonna draft a running back in the 1st, in the 2nd, 3rd round. Definitely, we all assume it's going to happen by the end of day 2, right? And I'm also acknowledging that there's a very good chance that this happens. That being said, I still believe that Jaylen Warren is a buy low. You look at the Steelers depth chart, right? If we do leave the draft and the Steelers don't draft anyone in the first 3 or 4 rounds of the NFL draft, and we leave the draft, Jaylen Warren is the clear-cut RB1 for this team because RB2 is Kenneth Gainwell, RB3 is Cordero Patterson. So he would definitely be at the top there. Another thing is that even if the Steelers do draft someone, by the way, Steelers don't have a 2nd-round pick. So keep that in mind. They do not have a 2nd-round pick. They have pick 21 and they have pick 83. So that's pretty important to me as well because they don't have the 2nd round to potentially target that running back. So either they have to take one in the 1st round or the earliest they're taking one is pick 83. And we know that the Steelers are also targeting quarterbacks. They really need a quarterback. Could they potentially trade up, trade that 3rd round pick to get up 5, 6, 7 spots? I don't know. I'm not good with all the trade values and stuff like that, but do they potentially trade a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick and try and move up and take a quarterback in the 1st round? And then that even lowers the odds that they take a running back later on. I honestly don't think the Steelers are going to feel terrible going into the season with Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, maybe a free agent that they bring in like a J.K. Dobbins or another free agent that's out there running back. So all that being said, let's just say they do draft someone, either 21st overall or 83rd overall. The Steelers draft someone in the 1st round or the 3rd round at the running back position. I still think that you're kind of getting Jaylen Warren at his floor to me. Like, I still think they're going to use Jaylen Warren, even if they do draft someone, in my opinion. Last year, Jaylen Warren kind of had a weird year, right? Jaylen Warren last year missed a couple of games. But he had over 800 total yards with 38 catches, only 1 touchdown. Right? He had a weird year. If you remember correctly, like Jaylen Warren had some injury issues going on, I think, in the preseason. Didn't really play much in the first 3 games of the year. Averaged 30, 48, and 33% of the snaps. That was his snap share each of the first 3 games. Then missed weeks 4 and 5. Came back in week 6. Only played in 37% of the snaps. And then from that point on, Jaylen Warren was playing about 50% of the snaps or so, right? From that point on, from week 7 on. If you look at week 7 to week 17, week 18, he didn't play as much either. Week 7 to 17, he was the RB32 in points per game. I know it says 43 there, 8.3 points, but if you look at week 7 to 17, he was the RB32. So I kind of feel like you're getting Jaylen Warren at his floor, even if they do draft someone, because they're still going to use him. And then, what if he's just the RB1 for the Steelers? The example I think of, right? Because we're all assuming, now they can't make this guy the RB1, is Austin Eckler. I think we all felt that way. Like when Eckler and Melvin Gordon were sharing the backfield, and then Melvin Gordon left in 2020, and we are like, no, Austin Eckler, he can't be the RB1. He's just this third down back, really good pass catcher, change of pace guy, but he can't take on, a bunch of a lot more touches and things like that. Well, guess what? He did, right? Austin Eckler, 2020, 170 touches. He missed some time. 2021, 276, 2022, 311, and he was awesome. So I kind of make that comparison to guys where we don't think they can be RB1s, but they potentially could turn into one. Jerome Ford is my other player that I'm saying people to buy low on. So here's what we know about the Cleveland Browns, right? In their draft, they're going to take they're taking Travis Hunter second overall, right? They still also need a quarterback. I know they have Joe Flacco, but they could definitely use a younger quarterback. So that's in play for them, either to trade back up into the first round or draft a quarterback 33rd overall. So there's a very good chance their first two picks, they're not taking a running back. Now, they do have a couple third-round picks. They have a fourth-round pick, so they have plenty of opportunity to take someone. That being said, what have we seen from this iteration of the Browns, right? From this iteration of the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, who's been the head coach of the Browns since 2020, right? He always uses multiple running backs. Always. Jerome Ford, who was RB35 in points per game. This is another, I think you're buying him at his absolute worst. Now, for Jerome Ford, I don't think his floor is RB55. Even if they draft someone, I think his floor is probably what he did last year, about 10 points per game or something like that, which isn't moving the needle or anything. It's going to be a flex play at best. But the Browns, even with the prime Nick Chubb, they were using multiple running backs, right? Even with the prime Nick Chubb. So what makes you think that if they draft someone in round 3, whether it's Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson or DJ Giddens in round 3 or 4 or something, what makes you think that they're just going to all of a sudden give that player 70% of the snaps or whatever it is, right? Again, Nick Chubb in 2022, when he rushed for over 1,500 yards, averaged 56% of the snaps, right? Nick Chubb in 2021, where he had over 1,250 rushing yards, 52.5% of the snaps. What makes us think they're going to draft someone in round 3 or 4 and then give him the keys to the car, right? So Jerome Ford, to me, is still going to play 50% of the snaps. And there's a chance that they just don't draft someone in the first few rounds, and Jerome Ford plays even a little bit more, right? Over the last 2 years, Jerome Ford, RB35 in points per game. Last year was a little bit of a weird year for him, but only 3 touchdowns and things like that. He was actually pretty good last year. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry, had 37 catches, but again, only had 3 touchdowns, which really brought him down. Look at his 2023 numbers. He had over 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. By the way, you know how many snaps he played that year? 50.7% of the snaps. That was the Nick Chubb got injured. I think Kareem Hunt came back. It was only playing half the snaps. So we've seen an example from Jerome Ford where he plays 50% of the snaps, still puts up a good year, over 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think he had over 40 catches that year. And so that was good for Jerome Ford was good for RB in 2023. He was good for, just double checking here, RB 25 in points per game when he was splitting the backfield. So again, what if they don't draft someone? What if he gets a little bit more work? I think Jerome Ford, to me, is buy low because I think Stefanski's going to use him whether he drafts a running back or not. Calvin Ridley is up next year. Currently the wide receiver 54. Calvin Ridley, who I know we're all a little bit disappointed in. He's already, by the way, like 30 years old. But that being said, like Calvin Ridley over the last 2 years, he was wide receiver 28 with Jacksonville back in 2023, averaged 13.5 points per game. Last year, as you see there, wide receiver 40 in points per game. But he did have a stretch, that second half of the season when like I think there was that game where he had like 7 targets and no catches, and then like was just like basically was like, what the hell is going on? Right? Like what are we doing here? So from that point on, Calvin Ridley, if I remember correctly, was like a top 20 wide receiver in total points. And he had moments. By the way, that was with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. Calvin Ridley to me is what I was saying about Terry McLaurin last year. Terry McLaurin in 2023, guys. Terry McLaurin was ranked all the way as low as like wide receiver 40, according to Keep Trade Cut. Terry McLaurin in 2023 was the wide receiver 38 in points per game, averaged 12 points per game. Very similar to what we just saw from Calvin Ridley, 11.7 and wide receiver 40 per game. Almost bang on, right? What changed for Terry McLaurin? They drafted a quarterback. And that's why I was telling people to buy low on Terry McLaurin, because what if the quarterback that they're going to draft at that time, I didn't know if it was going to be Drake May or Jaden Daniels, but basically said, what if the quarterback they draft is good? Who's going to benefit from that? It's going to be Terry McLaurin. And look what happened last year. Terry McLaurin, after his first couple of games, was a top 7 wide receiver in points per game. My Calvin Ridley to me is this year's Terry McLaurin. Now, do I think Calvin Ridley is as good as Terry McLaurin? I don't. But I would be shocked if Calvin Ridley stays healthy all year and is not a wide receiver 3 at worst, like a top 30, 35 wide receiver at worst. I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked, because that would mean like either he gets injured or Cam Ward is just like really, really bad. What if Cam Ward's good? What if Cam Ward's good? So we're looking at the Titans here, who, by the way, their depth chart, go look at their wide receiver depth chart. It's Calvin Ridley, it's Treylon Burks, and then it's Van Jefferson. That's their wide receiver depth chart. Now, are they going to bring someone in? Sure. But the earliest that they're going to bring someone in is at pick 35. Right? That's the earliest they're going to bring a wide receiver in. They don't have a 3rd round pick, by the way. They have a couple 4th round picks. I'm not going to be worried about a 4th round pick wide receiver really taking much away from Calvin Ridley year 1. I'm not going to be worried about it at all. Now, there's some veterans out there that they could bring in as well. They could draft someone at 35, but there's a very good chance that the top 4 wide receivers are gone in Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden. I think those 2 are guaranteed to be gone by 35. Probably Emeka Ibuka is gone. Probably Luther Burden. There's a good chance Luther Burden's gone. And so who are you taking? Are you taking a Jack Bash? Are you taking, Kyle Williams or Jalen Royals? Maybe one of those guys. That being said, if Cam Ward's good, whether they draft someone at 35 or not at wide receiver, Calvin Ridley is going to be at worst a wide receiver 3. And if he's not good, again, what are we doing? We're buying low. Right? We're not trading a 1st round pick for Calvin Ridley. We're getting him ideally as kind of a throw-in in another trade, right? So I would be shocked. I think Calvin Ridley could have a wide receiver 2 season if Cam Ward just puts it all together, and maybe even a little bit better if he's kind of the only wide receiver there, kind of like Terry McLaurin last year. Like they had a lot of nice, they had a lot of other pieces there. Olamide Zaccheaus, Diami Brown, Noah Brown, right? Just a bunch of wide receiver 3s and stuff like that. And it was Terry McLaurin. I would buy low on Calvin Ridley. And honestly, I think Calvin Ridley's going to stay a buy low through the end of the season, right? Or through the end of the offseason, right? He's going to continuously be a buy low. I don't think he's going to rise that much. I don't really see. We already know that Cam Ward's going to the Titans and Calvin Ridley's not rising. So I don't necessarily think you have to make this move before the draft. I think there's a chance he even falls a little bit if they take a receiver at 35, but he's going to continuously be on these buy low videos if he stays wide receiver 54 in value. Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is another one to me where I think we should be buying low on Jacoby Myers. He's wide receiver 49. Did you know that Jacoby Myers over the last 2 years has been a wide receiver 2 in points per game? Jacoby Myers last year, as you see the numbers there, was 14.5 points per game in PPR, wide receiver 23. He was better than Jerry Jeudy, better than Jordan Addison, than Cortland Sutton, than Jamison Williams, than DJ Moore, than Juwan Jennings, than Tyreek Hill, than DK Metcalf, than Zay Flowers, than Khalil Shakir. Jacoby Myers was better than all of those guys last year. By the way, it wasn't a fluke. In 2023, Jacoby Myers was the wide receiver 24 in points per game. Better than Cooper Kupp, better than Calvin Ridley, Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, DeAndre Hopkins, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Garrett Wilson, better than all these guys. But yeah, we just get a lot of hate for Jacoby Myers. He's been a damn good receiver for kind of 4 straight years now. And who has he played with at the quarterback position over those last 4 years? Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, Aiden O'Connell, was Desmond Ritter, Gardner Minshew. These are his quarterbacks. Who was it in 2023? Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, these are his quarterbacks over those 4 years. Yet he's consistently put up over 800 yards, 83 catches, 80 plus catches in a couple of years. Put it all together last year where he had 1,000 total yards, 87 catches, just 4 touchdowns, by the way. So, like, Jacoby Myers, to me, is a buy low, again, because I think you're getting him at his absolute floor. I know Brock Bowers is there, but by the way, Brock Bowers was there last year, caught all those passes, and Jacoby Myers was still good. Now, do the Raiders bring someone in? Maybe they do. Maybe they get a Ted McMillan at 6, right? But if, let's just say, I think it would be, if Ashton Genty's there at 6, I think the Raiders are taking him, right? So right away, let's just assume that happens. Their next pick is at 37 and then, 68. So they have a couple earlier picks where they could take a wide receiver, sure. But I'm in a weaker wide receiver class where by early round 2, there's a very good chance the top 4 wide receivers are gone. I'm not super worried about a wide receiver in this draft class coming in and from day one, from year one, taking a whole lot away from a guy like Jacoby Myers. By the way, Jacoby Myers is playing with his best quarterback he's probably ever played with, over at least over the last 4 years. I know I think he had a Brady year there for 2019, but he was a rookie. He's playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with in his career with Geno Smith, right? And Geno Smith, who, has propped up a couple receivers here and there. So, again, I would be surprised if Ashton Genty is there at 6. They don't take him first round. Now, if Genty is gone, well, that means that there's probably a really good defensive player that falls, one of these elite guys. Maybe they take Ted McMillan 6th overall. That's a possibility for sure. But, man, Jacoby Myers, to me, I think you're buying him again at his absolute low. And you could be getting a guy who's going to give you wide receiver 2 production. You really could. Still, he'll be 28 years old this year. He's not too old for a wide receiver. So, and let's just say they do get Genty. Now you're looking at an offense that has Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, Ashton Genty in the backfield, right? Hopefully a better offensive line, right? You're looking at an offense that could put up some points, yeah? And could be in games where they have, shootouts in the AFC West maybe. So just a guy that I think I would buy low on. Last one here is Theo Johnson. This one isn't – it was hard to find a tight end that I think could gain value after the NFL draft. One of the reasons why all these guys are on this list is because I think they all could gain value after the draft. Not all of them, but guys like Jalen Warren and Jerome Ford in particular could gain some value after the draft. Now, Theo Johnson, to me, isn't a guy that's necessarily going to gain value after the draft. The only reason I wanted to shout out Theo Johnson, I do think he is a potential buy low. Now, could the Giants take a tight end in the draft? They could. And they have obviously the 3rd overall pick. They have the 2nd pick of the 2nd round. They have an early 3rd round pick. They have a comp pick in the 3rd round. So, they have some places where they could find a tight end potentially in a pretty good tight end class. That being said, I think the Giants could potentially be comfortable with Theo Johnson. I know he's coming off an injury and stuff like that, but Theo Johnson was playing. He was one of those tight ends, and what I like about some of these tight ends, like a K-Dot and stuff, he was one of those tight ends that was just like out there all the time. He was playing over 85 or almost 85% of the snaps before he got hurt, which is, for tight ends to play that much, it's really hard for them to be a complete bust. If you're playing 90% of the snaps, 85% of the snaps, you're going to get catches. You just are, right? And that's kind of what he was doing before he got hurt. 3 for 35, 3 for 51, and a touchdown, 4 for 37, 3 for 39, 5 for 54. He was giving you a floor of a bare minimum tight end And, you know, he was a rookie, athletic guy. They could be in a better situation with a better quarterback. So he's a buy low for me. Again, I don't know if you have to do it before the draft, but decided to add him into into the mix here. So appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And by the way, before you close out this video, join our Discord. We're doing a giveaway after the end of the first round of the NFL draft. We're going live. We're going to give away a free team review at the end of that stream. All you have to do is join our Discord, go down to the giveaway section, leave a comment, and you're entered. So make sure to join there, guys. Appreciate it, everyone. Catch you guys all in the next video.